Good afternoon and welcome to BuzzLocal.tv. I'm Eric Jingles. Thank you so much for watching. Today, this is kind of part two, I guess you could say, of an interview that we did last November with the president of the American Medical Association about LED streetlights. The issue that people are having is that, well, they're just too bright. And here to talk to us about that is Jim Benya, who is the principal engineer of Benya Burnett Consultancy, all the way from Davis, California. Hello, Jim.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
Good. I guess it's good afternoon, Eric. But
it is good afternoon.
It's still morning out here. Yeah.
We have your picture up there, so if your lips aren't moving, that's why. It's not that you're a mumbler. We don't want people thinking that. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. We had heard you on the national radio not too long ago, and you had some very interesting things to say, and it's along the lines of concerns that we have here. Just to give you an overview, that the Power Commission in our province has changed, or is in the process of changing streetlights to LED streetlights, which are a huge cost saving in terms of energy compared to the sodium bulbs they had before. But what people I don't think didn't realize is that the color temperature, that high color temperature, which gives that blue light, is very intense and it has a lot of negative effects. Could you perhaps fill us in or explain a little bit about that?
Sure. The LEDs. Let me back up a little bit. LEDs are a brand new type of light source, relatively speaking, compared to the incumbent or older lights we've all lived with for the last 30 or 40 years, which are mostly what we call high-pressure sodium lights. High-pressure sodium lights are kind of a yellow, peaky color, and they've been doing the job for us for a long time. But LEDs are more energy efficient, and they're a light bulb that doesn't need to be changed. And that's a big deal because we're talking about never having to service luminaires, or what we call lighting fixtures, or the Cobra head streetlights in particular. How about if you never had to service them for 15 or 20 years? What a tremendous savings to the community. And they save energy too. They use considerably less. On the average, we can save about 50% of the energy compared with the incumbent sodium sources.
That's a lot.
These are very attractive reasons for us to go ahead and do this. So LED street lighting technology started to become possible about 2009, 2010. But the original LED streetlights were the most efficient LEDs at the time, with this very harsh bluish white light. We measure the whiteness of a light source according to something we call color temperature. And it's, in many ways, it's sort of backwards or oxymoronic. The lower temperatures are warmer and the cooler temperatures are higher. Right. That's, so a warm temperature, for example, the standard incandescent light bulb we've all lived with for so many years in our homes is about 2700 K or kelvins. And there's a whole physics reason for that. I won't go into it. Just remember 2700 K is warm and friendly and what we're used to. At 4000 Kelvin, it's kind of the same color temperatures we used to see in offices and schools and other commercial applications. It's a little bit brighter, it's a bit whiter, but it seems to suit the purpose. Well, there's a color of light color temperature that's even higher, 5000, 6000 K, even 7000 K. These are lighted sources that are becoming a very harsh white light that people tend to find to be very glary and not so friendly, not so warm and cozy like we used to.
Right.
So that's the way we describe color temperature. So the original LEDs were all high color temperature. All the research and all the science that had been put into them by that point emphasized efficiency over everything else. Well, of course, we in professional practice of lighting know better. We know that those color temperatures are not very, they're not very nice. They're not very friendly. They're not very romantic. They're not very a lot of things. So we tended to use, for outdoor lighting, warmer light sources, 2700 K, and sometimes even lower. That's why the old sodiums, which are 2100 K, just seemed to be okay. They provided a warm, cozy light, and everything looked normal. Along comes a 5000, 6000 K LED, and it's harsh, and it feels like prison lighting. It feels, they call them, when they did the first tests in Seattle, the community called them zombie lights. The complaints against these lights started in 2009. But because the original LEDs, the very high color temperature LEDs, were so efficient, community said, well, the heck with it. We're going to put them in anyway because we need to save the energy and we need to have these long life light sources.
Right.
And so community started doing it. Well, it's obviously it's a very exciting thing to do. There's a lot of emphasis from our government and our Department of Energy on doing it. I'm sure you get some of the same concerns from your country. And what we end up with here is lights being put in and then we don't like them. But there's another problem with LEDs that people aren't talking much about. LEDs, not only is the color of light really harsh, but because they're so much more efficient, they throw a lot of light out at very high angles, which go right in your bedroom window. And the sodiums didn't do that. So not only is the color of the light bad, but the angle of the light is worse too. So we've got these two problems that are occurring whenever LEDs get put into place. So we end up with too much light in the wrong places, and it's a bad color. Now, the American Medical Association is very keen on this. They've been paying close attention. I've been in communication with them myself over the past 7 years, and we've been very concerned about the color temperature of the light because it is unnatural.
Right.
The amount of blue light, see, when you take a white light, it is actually every color in the rainbow is part of that light. Red, green, blue, yellow, cyan, all the secondaries, magenta, etc. They're all part of that light. But the blue is exaggerated in the LEDs much more than it ever occurs in nature.
Okay.
Okay, and there's the problem because blue light is nature's biological signal that it's daytime. And this biological signal, and I'm not going to try and get into all that science because that's my partner's expertise. Deborah's quite an internationally renowned speaker on this subject. But in my simple engineering terms, that's nature's signal of daytime to every living being, not just human beings. In the case of the human being, that daytime signal suppresses at night melatonin. Melatonin comes out in the body. It's a body chemical that is released at the onset of night. And the melatonin levels rise in your bloodstream. They peak out in the middle of the night, then they start to fall. And by the time you start to wake up, melatonin's pretty well gone for the day. This happens every 12 hours. It's called a circadian rhythm. And melatonin is important in two reasons. One is that it makes the body sleep, all right?
Right.
Number two, it is critical in fighting cancer and other diseases.
Oh.
So if our melatonin is suppressed by blue light at night, that's what it does. It suppresses melatonin in the body. Then we're allowing, we're preventing our body from fighting disease, and we're not sleeping well. Sleep, then we should all realize this. Sleep is essential to good health. Cancer, diabetes, obesity, and all these are typically well identified now as causes, being caused by poor sleep.
Sure.
So if lights are causing us poor sleep, then they're causing us poor health. That's what the AMA has said. But there's other people realizing it's not just humans. That also affects plants. It affects bugs, bunnies, bees, buzzards, everything.
I heard, plants. Sorry to interrupt, but I had heard that it actually interrupted salmon.
It happened right here.
Is that where it was? There's 20,000 salmon that went upriver, then had a bridge with the blue light and dropped to 800 or something?
Yep, that happened right here in the Sacramento River in the city of Redding, California, which is about 150 miles north of us. There was a beautiful bridge designed by Santiago Calatrava. It's called the Sundial Bridge, and it's really a marvelous piece of architecture. Mm-hmm. But, people feel they have to light up these things, and they put these very bright white LEDs in the bridge, which has got a glass bottom. So the light poured out all over the river. And what it does is it messes with the migrating fishes' system of knowing where they are. They start swimming around in circles. They get tired before they get to where they're supposed to spawn. And it disrupts their normal spawning pattern. It makes them open to predation and simply dying of exhaustion.
Wow.
Now, again, I'm not an expert in this, but I know the people that are.
Right.
And they'll tell you the story if you want to. But yeah, it went from 15 to 20,000 salmon per year under the bridge to about 800. And they saw this process. They've turned off the lights, and the salmon are now rebuilding. This is simple. It happens. We know this happens to people. We know this happens to salmon. We know this happens to just about any species if we did a correct study. So it begs the question, why do we do it anyway?
Well, I guess the why that you hear is the cost saving in energy, but surely to goodness you can get, I know that Home Hardware, Home Depot, you can get lights that have the daylight glow or the soft glow, so can't you get those in street lights and still have that energy efficiency?
As a matter of fact, you can. I have one right outside my house here. We're involved in working with over 1 million streetlights in communities from Arizona to California to Hawaii to Chicago to Houston to where else? We have we're advising a lot of communities now. We've been contacted by Washington, D.C. We're telling them all the same thing. 2700K, which is a warm, incandescent toned light, LEDs, are within 5% of the efficiency that is the standard 4000K that we've been hearing we have to have because of its efficiency.
Right.
5%. The city of Phoenix, Arizona decided to put in all 2700K, even though they could get a little bit more efficiency out of 3000K and still meet the AMA's recommendations. Mm-hmm. They decided to go all 2700K because it looks better. It feels better.
Sure.
And they're going to pay about 3% more for that. In other words, 3% less energy savings. Mm-hmm. But you're already saving 50%.
Wow.
Put in, spend that 3% out of the 50%, only 47% savings, whoopee. Spend that 3% and have a result that everybody likes instead of, oh, we got the whole 50%, but everybody hates it.
Right. Well, So the AMA is recommending what color temperature between what and what?
Maximum 3,000.
Maximum 3,000.
Yeah, the lower the better.
Okay.
And we're working with the city of Riverside, California right now, and we're doing testing at 2,400K, which again recalls more of the gaslight era type of quality.
Oh, okay.
And they have a lot of historic streetlights, and they like it.
Right.
They like getting warmer. So the getting warmer is not bad. It's just a less energy efficiency. The lower you go in color temperature, you start to really lose significant energy efficiency.
Okay. But you're around 2,700. That's kind of 3,000, sort of the sweet spot, right? You still have that effect, but almost the same energy saving.
Right, and that's why the AMA picked those numbers, I think.
It's interesting because we talked a little bit earlier, and it's hard to know in tangible terms what the costs would be if they keep it at 5,000 and above, or the 4,000 before and 5 and 6, because if you do have that interruption of melatonin, which I didn't realize I thought it was just for sleep, but with regards to fighting disease or cancer and that kind of thing. If you have someone who's recovering from a surgery or is out with the flu more often because they're not getting a good night's sleep, the ramifications of that in terms of healthcare costs could be enormous.
Oh, they're huge, and this is the reason why the AMA has taken such a strong stand. The AMA and the International Dark Sky Association, of which I am not only a member but a former member of the board and member of the technical committee. We were the ones who worked with AMA to point this problem out and to show them what was going on. And the AMA just took it and ran with it because they listen to science coming from any direction. The AMA is not, they're not controlled by a particular scientific process. They're very aware of all the different discoveries and ideas and everything else. They have vetted this very thoroughly. This isn't, they've been accused by several people who shouldn't have written these things as not having done enough research, not being aware of it, and everything else. One of the things I do, I'm a professional engineer, and one of the things I do fairly often is expert witness work.
Okay.
And so I'm very much aware of the legal issues that this raises. And what I'm telling a lot of cities is there's no downside to putting in 2,700K or 3,000K, but there's a real downside to putting in 4,000 or 5,000K. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get a community. I mean, lawyers are already advertising this. You can find this on the web. Lawyers are advertising, trying to find people who have gotten cancer since the lights were put in, and they're organizing class action lawsuits. What's a city going to do when a lawyer walks in and says, "I have 1,000 people who have gotten cancer because of your lights, and we're suing you"? What's going to happen?
Could they make that connection though? I mean, I suppose if they have numbers and the increase in cancer rates goes up after the lights go in, I suppose that's the correlation. But
well, here's the way it works. The people who are trying to defend the lighting community and its poor decisions are saying, well, they can't prove that 4,000K street light caused your cancer. After all, it takes so much more light to cause this or cause that.
Right.
And all I'm saying, so when a lawyer walks in with 1,000 clients and a class action lawsuit, says we're suing you for $50 million, what's the city going to do? Defend it? Because after all, the American Medical Association already told them they shouldn't do it.
Right.
So what are they going to do? Say the doctors don't know what they're talking about with human health? They'd be stupid. The first words out of their mouth will be, what'll it cost to settle?
Right.
All right. Come on, so, let's get wise here. This is a liability, in my opinion, for a city to put in anything higher than 3,000K. It's a legal liability because they don't have a really good reason for doing it. So why should they? There's
right.
There's a lot of room. Let me finish.
Sorry.
There's a lot of rumors out there about how you can see better, you're safer, and everything else. The IES doesn't support that. So if the IES doesn't support it, there's no legitimate national or international group saying, yes, you should have the higher color temperature. Then why are they doing it?
So those, for example, in our situation where maybe half the streetlights have been done, and moving forward, perhaps they shouldn't be using the brighter ones, but it almost seems like it's worth it to take out those lights, even though there's a cost to doing that long term and be a better saving all around to replace those.
Well, let me tell you what we did here in Davis.
Okay.
I think I mentioned this earlier, but we stormed City Hall. Literally, my partner and I, because we're recognized as experts in the field, we were invited by City Council to present at that meeting. But what we said is we believe if you take the existing LED streetlight, you take it down and you put up a properly chosen new LED streetlight, first of all, you're probably going to put in less light. Instead of, 5,000 lumens from a fixture, you may only put in 2,000. And when you do that, instead of 50 watts, you're only going to be running at 20 watts. And in fact, in Davis, when they did that, they determined that they would actually save enough energy to pay for the cost of replacing the lights. So
wow.
what this really all circles back to, in my opinion, is if a community has already put in LED streetlights, and they put in 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000K, they could embark upon a program of saying, we're going to change them, we're going to do it intelligently, and we're going to try to use lower light levels, which is also recommended by both AMA and IDA. We're going to use lower light levels and the energy savings to help pay for us fixing it. And that's what we did in Davis. I think as most communities could probably do that. And so if you started a program with 4,000, 5,000K, stop. Don't put anything else up there, because as a fundamental principle, don't double up the labor costs that we're all going to run into.
Right.
And then secondly, start putting in 2,700K. immediately and start using lower wattages. And there's a way to do this. There's a way to do it and still meet good recommended practices. And that's what we're doing with our clients, is we're showing them how to do that.
Well, Jim, this is a lot to take in. It was I learned a lot more than I had read on before, and I thank you very much for that. We certainly appreciate your expert opinion.
You're very welcome, Eric. It's nice to meet you, and I wish you the best and great success at helping get the word out. This is a problem that doesn't have to continue and doesn't have to be.
Well, as I said earlier, it's interrupting my badminton game with my kids on the street whenever I look up. That's my excuse when I'm falling behind in the points. But I shouldn't be using that as an excuse. Jim, thank you so much. Jim Benya, who is the principal engineer for Benya Burnett Consultancy in Davis, California. Eric Jingles with BuzzLocal.tv. Please, if you have any questions, email us at buzz@buzzlocal.tv. We'd certainly like to hear your feedback. Thank you for watching.